Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to be learning how to answer questions about a text. We will be specifically focusing on questions and answer relationships and how comprehension of this will help further your understanding about a text topic. So I will be reading aloud the book A Bad Case of Stripes, which is by David Shannon. And through the reading, we will be filling out a QAR graphic organizer based on our discussion. Does anyone know what a QAR graphic organizer is? Or what QAR stands for? Yes, question answer relationships. So I'm going to start by providing you with some helpful vocabulary, and we're going to be using an anchor chart to clarify this lesson's key terms and for a reference point throughout the lesson for you guys too. So let me go ahead and share my screen so we can go ahead and look at our vocabulary. All right, so the first term on our chart is comprehend. Can anyone tell me what it means to comprehend something? Yes, to grasp and understanding the meaning of something mentally. Can anyone give me an example of something you can comprehend or a time that you've comprehended something? Awesome. So this would be the point where I would discuss each of the four vocabulary words like I did the first one. So after vocabulary, I would then provide the students with a copy of our QAR system stems. So these are reading response sentence starters to help us, and we would review these together, as well as the actual QAR graphic organizer that entails right there questions and answers, author and you answers, think and search, and on my own. So during the read aloud, please note questions and answers in the appropriate box of the graphic organizer and verbally answer questions aloud throughout the read aloud. Note information on your worksheet that helps you understand the main topic of the text, as well as questions you would like to ask after the read aloud if we haven't already covered them. So let's go ahead and do our read aloud. So this is our book, A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror. Then she screamed. So, why? Question for you guys. Why did Camila never eat lima beans even though she loved them? Yes. And how many dresses or outfits did she try on just now? And can someone tell me why or make a prediction on why she might have screamed? All right, let's see. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. Most extraordinary, he exclaimed. I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching? So, why do you think the doctor is asking her all these symptoms? What have we seen that's changed in her appearance? Yes. No, Camilla said. I feel fine. Well then, Dr. Bumble said, turning to Miss Cream. I don't see any reason she couldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me. And off he went. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard," and a pattern of squares covered her skin. Some Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you could change channels on the TV. So what were the kids doing? Yes. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Miss Cream," he said. "I'm going to have you ask you to keep Camille home from school. She's just too much of a distraction. I've been getting calls from parents that they're afraid that those stripes might be contagious." Camila was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now, nobody wanted to be in the same room as her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything that I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," sighed Camila. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for one day. So why do you think Camila turned down the offer that her father gave her and said nothing when she really wanted lima beans? Job. Hmm. Well, yes, I see. Dr. Bowman mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. I think I'd better bring in the specialists. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with four people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. "This is Mr. Grop, Doc, or this is Dr. Grop, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young." Then the specialists went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed, tapped, and tested. It was very uncomfortable. "Well, it's not the mumps," concluded Dr. Grop. "Or the measles," said Dr. Sponge. "Definitely not chicken pox," put in Dr. Cricket. "Or sunburn," said Dr. Young. "Try these," said the specialist. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. "Take one each before bed," said Dr. Grop. Then they filed out the door, followed by Dr. Bumble. How would you guys feel if you're Camila in this situation? Yeah, maybe nervous or overwhelmed, or yeah, confused. That night, Camila took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant multicolored pill with her face on it. Why do you think that Camila turned into a pill? What happened previously in the story makes you think that. Okay, let's see. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Miss Cream called, but this time instead of the specialist, he brought the experts. Does anyone know the difference between a specialist and an expert? Maybe the expert is even more important. Dr. Gord and Mr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. "It might be a virus," he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little viruses balls appeared all over Camilla. So what keeps happening? What is being done? And how does Camilla react? Something is said and then it happens to her, right? What in the world? Or possibly some form of bacteria, said Mr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. Or it could be fungus, added Dr. Gord. Instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus splotches. The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. "We need to go over these numbers again and get them back to the lab," Dr. Gord explained. "We'll call you when we know something." But the experts didn't have a clue, more or less a cure. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. So, why did you think the news came? Why does the news usually come? Why are things usually on TV news? The Koreans were swamped with all kinds of remedies from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, and even a veterinarian. What are all these? What does all this have to do with medicine? Yeah, people who help you, doctors. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and long furry tail, but nothing worked. Let's take a look at Camilla on the left. Super crazy, right? Let's see. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe deeply and become one with your room. So, what did she just say first? Become one with your room. Let's look at the picture. I wish you hadn't said that. Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth. Her nose was a dresser, and two paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. What are we going to do? Cried Miss Cream. It just gets worse and worse. She began to sob. So what happened? Yeah, Camilla became her room. Goodness. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. He opened it. There stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. Excuse me, she said brightly, but I think I can help. What do you think the old lady's going to offer? Yeah, maybe. She went into Camilla's room and looked around. My goodness, she said with a shake of her head, what we have here is a bad case of stripes, one of the worst I've ever seen. She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. Here, she said, these might do the trick. Are those magic beans? Asked Miss Scream. What do you guys think those are? Yeah, maybe. Oh my, no, replied the old kind one. There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans. I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you? She asked Camilla. So where's her mouth in this picture? In between the matches. What in the world? Yuck, she said. No one likes lima beans, especially me. Oh dear, the old woman said sadly. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag and started towards the door. Camilla watched the old lady walk away. Those beans would taste so good. And being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she was going through. She finally couldn't stand it. Wait, she cries. The truth is, I really love lima beans. I thought so, the old woman said with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Said Camilla. Why do you think, how do you think this lady knows that she likes lima beans? Suddenly, the branches, the feathers, the squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around her. When it stopped, there stood Camilla. Everything was back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. She patted Camilla on the head. Then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterwards, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted. She never had even a touch of stripes again. All right, so that is that. Let's go back and look at our question and answer relationship chart. Let's take a quick look at the top left box right here of the QAR organizer. And here we should have noted some information or questions being asked that can be found directly in the book. These answers should stand out and should be easy to find than other types that we're going to be focusing on. For example, when I asked you all who the main character was during the read aloud, this question and the answer, Camilla, is an example of the type right there. Does anyone have any questions so far? So let's go ahead and model this for you guys. So one of a right there answer could be, is the main character, because that was our answer for that question, right? Another one, let's see, we'll do one more together before we work in groups. Another right there answer when we were discussing was one of the first questions, how many outfits did she try on? And that answer was 42, right? So she tried on 42 different. All right, awesome. So now that we have worked together as a class on part of the graphic organizer and you guys have been able to see it modeled and hopefully added some to your own graphic organizer individually during the read aloud, I would like you to work with your table group to fill out the organizer further. And that would be my guided practice introduction.